The salt-tang debris rolled in from whispering sound, threading between the rulings and runnels of Oldtown's labyrinthine wharves, before gathering beneath the shadow of the Hightower. Dawn had not yet broken. The darkness was a hushed blue, like the belly of a deep ocean wave waiting to crest. Lanterns flickered along the honey-colored quays, each flame mirrored in the glass-smooth harbor, until the water seemed pocked with fallen stars. In the highest tier of the tower, where few were permitted, and fewer still dared linger, Lord Leighton Hightower stood alone, gazing out upon a city that had almost forgotten how to fear him. He was tall still, though age bowed his shoulders. Silver-white hair spilled in thin rings to his collar, and his eyes, once a bright, skeptical green, had paled to the muted jade of old glass. Those eyes held a quiet hunger as he leaned upon the Merlon, studying the cobbled arteries of Oldtown far below. So many lights, so many doors. He wondered how many souls here dreamt of crowns. Far fewer, he imagined, than souls who dreamt of prophecy. Behind him, a low rasp of boot leather on stone announced his daughter's approach. Melora Hightower, clad in austere smoke-gray wool, carried no torch, yet her path was sure. She had walked these battlements in infancy, toddling between crenellations, while the wind whipped her swaddling blanket like a banner. Now she moved with purpose. Ink-black hair plaited close to her head, chin set, the faintest shimmer of lamplight dancing in her dark eyes. She inclined her head in wordless greeting. "Father," she said after a moment. Her voice cut the night, all edge and intention. "The dreamers are assembled." Assembled. Leighton's smile was thin. A parliament of ravens, perhaps. Or a murder. Have they brought auguries worth hearing? That remains to be seen. Melora stepped beside him, resting pale hands on cold stone. Oldtown is restless. Each brigand rumor or flicker in the flame is seized upon as an omen. We cannot indulge every mad whisper, yet neither can we ignore what the fires reveal. A gull shrieked far below, wheeling past a docked Taroshi cog. Leighton's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the sea and sky bled together in smoke-gray folds. "Fire and salt," he murmured. "The makings of both prophecy and ruin." Melora waited, patient as only a Hightower could be. She understood her father's silences. He had spent half his life at these heights, listening to secrets borne on winds no maester could chart. Some said Leighton communed with ghosts of the deep ones, that he bargained with unquiet fires in the slender spire above even this perch. Others whispered that the tower itself spoke to him in the language of crumbling mortar and ancient dream. Melora believed neither tale in full, but she believed in her father. At last, Leighton straightened. "Very well, bring them to the solar, and rouse the Citadel's envoys. No prophecy stands alone. If we are to rise again, we must braid knowledge with vision." Melora nodded once, turned, and vanished into the stairwell's black maw. Her footfalls faded, swallowed by stone. Leighton breathed the salt air, let it fill his lungs until they burned. House Hightower had watched empires rise and fall since before the Andal's first longships cut through the Mander. They had bent knee to dragons and reached for the stars in equal measure. Yet never had they reclaimed the iron-spined majesty that once made Oldtown a rival to King's Landing. And before that, to Valeria's shadow. If prophecy was the key, then so be it. Better a doomed vision that stoked the blood than another generation of quiet decay beneath the boughs of the arbor's wines and the Reach's soft harvests. The eastern sky blushed with first light, and Leighton Hightower smiled as if greeting an old conspirator. Morning bells tolled thrice as the solar filled. A circular chamber walled in pale alabaster, the room wore history like a mantle. Tapestries depicting the founding of the Citadel, the burning of the Hightower by the far-gone Sphinx King, the crowning of Garth Greenhand's bronze-helmed heirs, and, above the hearth, an embroidered tower wreathed in night-glow flame. The screenwork shutters were thrown open, admitting long blades of sunrise that painted the oaken floorboards gold. A single table of dark-heart oak dominated the chamber, its surface carved in concentric rings like a cut tree. The stacked histories of Oldtown itself. Melora stood at Leighton's right. To her left, Deniston of the Rose-White Hand, The Citadel's newly minted Archmaester of Prophecy adjusted his copper and obsidian torque, eyes bright behind crystal lenses. Beside him, Grand Maester Orwell, moon-pale and expressionless, arranged quills in precise alignment. Arrayed on the far side sat the Dreamers. 9 men and women in robes of gray and cream, each bearing a sigil of a lifted lantern. Their gazes shimmered with the half-awareness of those who passed more hours in vision than in waking life. And there was one more. A figure who had not been summoned yet, came regardless. Sir Martin Hightower, bannerman to his brother Baylor and commander of the Oldtown City Watch, lounged against a hafted poleaxe at the room's edge. He wore heavy black brigandine over quilted green, and a lean scar crossed his cheek, like an errant brushstroke. He met Leighton's eyes with wry amusement. "My lord," Martin said, "you've gathered quite the council. You'll forgive a man of steel if he wonders where he fits in amid scholars and soothsayers." "Then, it's now." Leighton gestured to an empty stool. "Steel is prophecy made flesh." "You are welcome." Martin grunted and remained standing. Leighton spread his hands. "Begin." Archmaester Deniston cleared his throat. "In studying the volumetrics of dragonflame patterns during the dance, particularly those recorded in Septon Eustace's codices, we have discovered a recurrence of numerical symbology tied to the tower's founding year. 1,000 years minus 7 to be exact. That figure reappears in dream journals compiled by these individuals." He inclined his head to the Dreamers, each of whom has seen visions of a tower crowned in blue, not green, flame. At this, murmurs stirred. Oldtown's brazier fires historically burned green, a result of certain alchemies in their oils. Blue fire was Valyrian lore, yet Valyria was ash and bone. Deniston continued. "Furthermore, the dreams suggest a celestial alignment to occur 2 winters hence. Should Oldtown light a beacon of the prophesied hue at that time, the city shall become—" How was it phrased? He rifled a parchment. "A second dawn to wake the land, a star upon the mortal sea." "It sounds," Melora said, "like riddle gruel fit for children." And yet her tone was thoughtful. She paced a hand across the table's carved rings. "What of the Citadel's starry sept records, the ones burned during Maegor's purge?" "Astute," Deniston replied. "Fragments survive. They speak of the flame sublime, a blue beacon only the truest dragon blood may kindle without death. The last attempt, by Lady Arana of Giscar. Blood, ended in immolation." "Menenawal," Sir Martin snorted. "If you're suggesting my niece's dance with wildfire—" "Not wildfire," Deniston said sharply. "Dawnflame, a higher calling." Leighton lifted a hand. Silence resumed. "Let us not quarrel over color and terminology. The point is potential. If Oldtown can birth a beacon that outshines Dragonstone's ancient light, we do more than reclaim forgotten glory. We seize narrative. And narrative, my friends, is power." Grand Maester Orwell spoke at last, voice dusty. "I must remind this council that prophecy is no map, only weather. It warns of storms but cannot chart a course. We risk inviting calamity in the name of glory." "And we risk irrelevance," Melora countered, "if we cower beneath every threatening cloud." Sir Martin's scarred grin widened. "Storms be damned. Oldtown needs a sword to point where the beacon should shine, else we'll blind ourselves in our own brightness." Leighton nodded, pleased. "Which is why you will expand the City Watch by 2,000 men, training them under secrecy. The Citadel will provide no less than 4 master armorers to reforge our rusted stockpiles. We prepare quietly, for a time when the tower's shadow stretches beyond these walls." "Then?" Gasps rippled among the Dreamers. Even Deniston looked startled. "These measures are costly," Orwell murmured. The crown," Leighton said, "has spent its coin chasing winter's ghosts in the north and filling Lannister coffers to rebuild burnt fields. King's Landing is blind and bleeding. Oldtown must see and be whole." He fixed Orwell with a stare sharp as splintered glass. "The Citadel owes its birth to us. It will remember that debt." The candles seemed to tremble. In that hush, a hush thick enough to stop breath, Melora imagined she heard the tower itself exhale. One of the dreamers rose, a woman pale as moon milk, her eyes two pools of star water. "I dreamed," she whispered, voice fragile. "Off the shadow rising. A beacon blue as morning. Ships of glass upon the river, bearing suns in cages. And in the highest window of the tower, a child not yet born whose laughter turned the sea to crystal." Leighton inclined his head. Noted. The dreamer sagged back to her seat, tears tracking down her cheeks. Deniston scribbled furiously. "If I may, child not yet born implies lineage. A bloodline must converge." Enough for now, Leighton decided. He turned to Melora. "Summon Baylor and Allery. I want every scion of our house briefed. The tower will find its flame." "Yes, father." Leighton dismissed the assembly. As chairs scraped and robes rustled, he felt an old pulse awakening inside him. Something that had slept since the dragons perished. It was wonder, yes, but also terror. Prophecy cut both ways. A beacon that guided ships could equally draw reavers. Yet perhaps House Hightower's time had come again. He lifted his gaze to the solar's high window, where morning light streamed unbroken. Beyond the glass, the city was stirring. Baylor Brightwater Hightower was not a man who enjoyed early summonses, but duty drew him to the tower all the same. He wore a doublet of dark sea green, embroidered at the cuffs with silver lanterns. Behind him came his younger sister Allery, cheeks flushed from the brisk climb. The siblings entered the small council chamber where Leighton waited, flanked by Melora. "Father," Baylor said, offering a shallow bow. "Rumors travel faster than ravens. The harbor claims a black sail from Pentos arrived before dawn. Cargo unknown. Beware rumor," Leighton replied. "It serves itself. But your timing is apt. We have work." Baylor arched an eyebrow, the very picture of skeptical nobility. "Work?" Melora produced a folded cloth from within her sleeve. She unfurled it on the table, revealing a map drawn in shimmering inks that shifted hue with the angle of torchlight. Oldtown at its heart, a wheel of colored spur lines splaying into the surrounding reach and beyond. "This," Melora said, "is the path of lanterns. Each line marks a trade artery, a pilgrimage road, or an under-river barge route that feeds Oldtown's veins. Many lie shattered by war or neglect. We will mend them. When the beacon rises, travelers must flow as blood to a beating heart." Leighton's gaze flicked to Baylor. "You will oversee reconstruction. Secure toll rights, negotiate safe passage. Begin with the Honeywine tributaries. Gold equal to half our tithes this quarter is yours to allot." Baylor's astonishment warred with ambition. Potential profit gleamed in his eyes. A bold undertaking. "And what of the Tyrells?" "Highgarden will bark, but not bite," Leighton said. "They are newly enthralled with rose-colored pageantry, content to smell sweet and think sweeter. And should they bristle, remind them who guards the mouth of the Mander. Without our blessing, their wine spoils upon the sea." "Ben?" Allery spoke then, voice soft yet unwavering. "And I? I have no taste for roads and coin counts." Leighton regarded her. Of all his children, Allery had the keenest sense for people. She read runes like Septons read tomes. "You," he said, "will travel." Her brows lifted. "Throughout the Reach," Leighton continued, "to every lesser house that remembers the old way, the worship of the Seven informs older than the Sept's softened rites. Whisper to them of prophecy and the lantern dawn. Gather songs, relics, tales, daikuru. Let our legend root itself in folk memory before the first blue flame is lit. When the day comes, the people must believe they foretold it themselves." Nendam Shawande. Allery's lips curved. "A challenge accepted. I will need a small retinue. And pottery gifts, I think. People cherish the tangible." Melora smiled faintly. "We will supply you." Leighton turned to the window again. Time flows swift. 2 winters is little in the life of a city, yet an epoch in the life of a man. We must hurry. Baylor inclined his head, though apprehension lingered. Leighton sensed it. "I see the question in your eyes, my son. You pursue a dream," Baylor said. Dreams have devoured kings and priests alike. Dreams, Leighton answered, built this tower. They forged every link of chain the maesters wear. They crown men and they end them. But they never perish. We will ride this dream, not drown in it. We will shape it to our lantern. He clasped Baylor's shoulder. Now go. There is gold to spend and roads to pave. Baylor departed, loyalty wresting victory over doubt. Ellery followed, her mind already spinning threadbare legends into newfound silk. Melora lingered after they had gone. It begins, she murmured. Not yet, Leighton replied, watching gulls swirl above the harbor like scraps of parchment. But soon. That night, beneath a moon thin as a paring knife, a hooded figure climbed the Hightower's wind-torn steps to the observatorium, a glass-walled eyrie near the pinnacle, reserved for star priests and unquiet minds. The hooded one slipped inside. No guards barred the way. None were permitted this high, save Leighton's chosen. Within, countless crystal lenses hung from bronze catenaries, each angled to snare starlight and pour it into silver bowls of quicksilver. Pale constellations danced upon the liquid surfaces. At the room's center rose a pedestal of black marble, its top hollowed in a shallow depression, no wider than a man's palm. The hooded figure produced a vial of translucent blue fluid that glowed with its own inner fervor. With careful hands, they unstopped it and tipped one trembling drop into the hollow. Light leapt searing white. Glass rang like chimes. A column of blue-white flame shot upward, kissing the domed ceiling before collapsing inward, sucked back into the marble cup. The hooded shadow staggered but remained upright. When the dazzle dimmed, the pedestal stood unblemished, save that the cup now burned with a cerulean ember that pulsed like a heartbeat. The figure exhaled shakily. Then, with the barest quiver, they pulled back their hood. It was Melora. Sweat beaded her brow, luminescent in the ember's glow. She whispered, "It lives." Below in the tower, Leighton stirred from restless slumber, eyes snapping open to the distant flavor of ozone and revelation. He felt, more than heard, the echo of the flame's birth. A thrill like molten gold raced his veins. Prophecy, he thought, always demands a first light. Months passed in tireless labor. Baylor's coin and cunning reopened the battered Rose Road, forging pacts with bandit lords and lesser knights alike. Bridges long in ruin sprouted new timbers. Inns along the Honeywine hoisted lanterns etched with the rising tower. Trade that had drifted north to King's Landing's markets drifted back, drawn by murmured promise and lower tariffs. Ellery roamed meadow and marsh, valley and vineland, whispering her father's gospel. She brought relics, clay lanterns fired in the tower's kilns, each painted with swirling blue flame. At harvest festivals she sang ballads of a light to come, a light that would guide lost souls through winter's darkest night. Farmers left with tears shining, gripping lanterns as though they burned already. Sir Martin drilled 2,000 men in the disused yards of Moss Kiss Keep Up River. Swords flashed. Shields rang. At night, he fed them tales of a dawn they would guard with blood and iron. The men called themselves Dawn Blades, and they prayed to the warrior aspect of the Seven, not in the Sept's gentle litanies, but in fierce half-remembered chants of the first men, blending faiths as easily as they swapped sword hands. Meanwhile the citadel stirred. Archmaester Deniston scoured vaults, sealed for a century, unearthing scrolls of Valyrian metallurgy, smelted fragments of star metal, rare celestial iron found only in scattered skyfall, were requisitioned. He melded these with refined goldfire salts, forging a powder that shimmered azure in torchlight. The Dawn Powder, he named it, and locked it away. Grand Maester Orwell watched all with increasing unease. His rational mind recoiled at mystic fervor, yet the tower's momentum swept logic aside like a leaf in floodwater. In private letters to King's Landing, letters that never left Oldtown, he counseled caution and demanded oversight. Each letter vanished. Orwell grew as pale as the pages he wrote upon. Leighton remained above, directing, advising, dreaming. He seldom descended below the lantern tier. Some whispered that his flesh aged in reverse, that he drank secret waters and grew young. Others said he fed upon his own visions, more wraith than lord. Whatever the truth, his will radiated through stone and soul alike, a gravity that bent all orbits inward. One crisp winter evening, as snowflake blossoms drifted along the battlements, the Reach's mild snows melted on contact with warm stone. Leighton convened his inner circle in the observatorium docks. The ember Melora birth months before had grown. It now hovered above the cup, a palm-sized sphere of swirling sapphire flame, lighting the glass chamber in eerie daylight hues. Sparks fluttered from its surface, settling on stone without scorch or smoke before winking out. The heart, Deniston breathed, staring. Leighton regarded the flame. Not yet. Only in echo. But when the alignment comes, we shall feed it. Orwell clutched his chain. My lord, I must protest. This thing abrogates natural law. If it fails, if it rages beyond control. Melora's gaze cut him short. Fear is understandable, Grand Maester. Cowardice is not. Orwell flushed. Leighton gestured to Deniston. Ein, part-time. The Archmaester cleared his throat. 3 nights hence, at the Mu's zenith, the stars Sem and Altheirin will conjoin in the southern sky, an event repeating each 700 years. In Valyrian astronomy, this heralded the opening of what they called the Celestial Gate. If our calculations hold, the heart will absorb this resonance and grow. Should we then channel it through the tower's beacon prism? He indicated a newly installed lattice of starglass suspended above. It will ignite the dawn powder ascendant, birthing the blue light sanctified in dream. Sir Martin rolled his shoulders. And the rest of us keep the mischief at bay. Correct, Leighton said. King's Landing must learn of this only after it begins. The Tyrells will be occupied by their winter feast. Our true foes lie elsewhere. Baylor frowned. Elsewhere? Melora answered. Whispers of shadowbinders in Ashai sniffing after western ports. Red priests in lice preaching of a Hightower flame that blots out the dawn. Prophecy is a magnet, draws iron and blood alike. Thou. Leighton nodded. Hence, Martin's Dawnblades will patrol the city overwalls. The Citadel's acolytes will secure the harbor. Deniston's order prepares the alchemical crucibles. And he placed a hand over the heart, flame dancing inches from his skin, shall guide the light. For a heartbeat, everyone in the chamber felt invisible strings tighten around their hearts, binding them to a purpose older than bloodlines, older perhaps than the Seven themselves. Then Leighton withdrew his hand, and the hearts of those assembled beat again. Go, he said. The night of the Celestial Gate arrived cloaked in silent frost. Oldtown bustled despite the chill. Innkeepers hammered shutters, sailors lashed lines, hope and dread commingled in lamplight. Atop the Hightower, the observatorium thrummed with activity. Deniston's assistants stirred glowing admixtures in lead-lined alembics. Maesters in silver masks checked astrolabes against starlit measurements. Below, on the beacon tier, Melora stood at the ready lever of the great prism gears. The prism itself, a 7-sided shard of starglass as tall as a man, hung in chains like a suspended cathedral window, waiting to receive the heart's radiance. Sir Martin paced the ringwalk outside with 100 Dawnblades. Their shields bore a nascent symbol, a tower on a field of blue flame. Some rendered it crudely with chalk, others had painstakingly etched and painted the design. It mattered little. Belief needs only shape, not polish. Midnight's cold lifted into a hush. Above the tower's pinnacle, Leighton emerged. He wore simple robes dyed deep cerulean, trimmed with cloth of silver. No crown, no scepter. His authority transcended trinkets. He approached the heart, which pulsed brighter with each passing moment, its light now filling the chamber like living sky. Deniston raised his hands in incantation of equations. SM ascendit, he whispered. Althern conjuncti. The sphere flared white, then blue. A blinding, impossible color like liquid dawn. Leighton felt it beckon. Not with heat, but with gravity of will. He lifted the sphere in both hands. It hovered, weightless, responding to his thought like a tamed star. Melora, he called. She grasped the lever. Chain pulleys groaned, and the prism descended into alignment. As it did, Leighton lowered the heart into the prism's central hollow. A note like crystal shattering yet remade resounded across the tower. Blue fire shot through the prism's facets, refracted into 7 perfect beams, each one lancing outward into the night. They pierced darkness, painting sky streaks above Oldtown, until the heavens themselves looked veined with sapphire. Gasps erupted in streets and taverns. Sailors collapsed to knees. Children laughed or cried. The beams converged beyond mortal vision into a coruscating aurora. In the observatorium, Leighton's body shook. The heart tried to devour him, to claim flesh for fire. He bit down on a cry, channeling the burning into the prism. Deniston's acolytes hurled flasks of dawn powder onto the brazier pits encircling the tower's roof. Each splash ignited into vast swaths of blue flame that raced up the stone spire, wreathing it in living light. Oldtown saw the Hightower reborn, a torch to outshine any dragon flame. Its glow painted every ship's sail, every cobblestone, every human face in shades of newborn day. The city breathed as one. But power, this pure, cannot remain unchallenged. From the harbor's edge, 3 shadow-cloaked skiffs cut through water silent as the grave. Their helmsmen wore masks of lacquered red, eyes hidden behind blotches of obsidian glass. They carried casks of viscous oil blacker than night, bound for the tower's base. A faith militant patrol spotted them, cried warning. But too late. Flames licked stone above as the skiffs reached foundation piers. The masked attackers heaved their casks against load-bearing buttresses. The impact cracked staves, oil sluiced. A torch flared. Sir Martin, from the ringwalk, saw an orange gout bloom far below. No mere lantern spark, but saboteur's fury. He shouted orders. Dawn blades raced down spiral stairs, but distance devoured seconds. Fire thrived on seconds. Within, Leighton felt the tremor. A half-heartbeat of doubt coursed through him, a flicker in the flame. The heart surged, unsated. Melora braced, eyes blazing. Deniston screamed over the roar of alchemy and starglass. Maintain focus. Outside, the saboteurs hurled more torches. Stone steamed. Ancient mortar hissed. But Hightower stone was quarried from the bones of the world, tempered with salt and prayer. Flames clung like desperate insects, yet failed to scour upward. Dawn blades reached the piers. Swords flashed. The masked men fell. Spilling blood as dark as the oil I'd borne. Martin himself strode through the smoke, hacking free the burning casks. With gauntleted fists, he dashed torches into seawater. Fire hissed, died. He bellowed triumph to the sky, and the dawn blades echoed it until their voices mingled with the tower's thunder. Above, Leighton felt the threat wane. In its place surged vindication. He raised his arms. The prism thrummed, and the 7 beams widened, swallowing constellations. Across the reach, windows shuddered. Dogs howled. The faith's bells tolled not in warning, but in awe. This was no mere pyre. This was proclamation. At dawn, the blue flame still burned, softer now, gentle as early sky. People gathered in Oldtown squares, eyes upturned, every face painted azure. Priests of the 7 stumbled from the starry sept, chanting hymns they had nearly forgotten. Citadel novices knelt beneath tower shadows, uncertain whether to pray or record. Leighton descended at last to the tower's great courtyard. His skin glowed faintly, as though lit from within. He seemed taller. Baylor, Melora, Allery, Martin, Deniston. They formed a circle around him. Silence reigned until Leighton spoke. "Oldtown stands," he said. "The beacon has risen. From this day forward, the world will reckon with the light of the Hightower." Baylor bowed his head. Martin struck his poleaxe's butt to stone. Melora's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Allery smiled. "The folk already call it the Dawnstar, Father. So they shall." Leighton turned his gaze eastward, where a thin line of gold bled against the blue horizon. "Send word to King's Landing. Let the small folk whisper first. The ravens may come after. By the time the Iron Throne wakes, The story will be carved in every heart from arbor to crackclaw, and stories, my children, are stronger than crowns of steel. He lifted a hand, palm catching newborn sunlight. Across the realm, lords and ladies would ride to Oldtown, some seeking blessing, others bearing blades. Prophecy does not grant peace, it offers purpose. House Hightower had found its purpose again, and in the high quiet of the observatorium, the heart pulsed on. Waiting, watching, dreaming of what shape dawn might next assume. Snow lingered on the slate roofs of Oldtown like the last scraps of a forgotten dream. In the hush that followed the Dawnstar night, the city learned to breathe in an unfamiliar rhythm. Slow, reverent, expectant. Carters hauling cider barrels paused to touch the tower's sigil freshly painted on their wagons. Septons emptied incense censers toward the Hightower instead of the heavens. Even the gulls that circled the harbor screeched less and watched more, as if afraid their usual clamor might shatter the fragile crystal of prophecy now hanging over every soul. Ellery Hightower returned from a month on the road with cheeks wind-burned and eyes bright, her saddlebags crammed with offerings. A chipped idol of the father discovered in a field where lantern-blue foxfire burned at midnight, a jar of honey whose comb had hardened into the shape of a tower, and a leather book of rustic hymns to the dawn that shepherds had sung long before Oldtown existed. She entered the tower's great hall on a crisp morning when frost made the flagstones sparkle, and the servants parted like reeds before a swan. Leighton descended from his eyrie to greet her. He who once seemed a frail scholar now strode with the wary grace of a hawk perched on storm rigging. He took each relic in turn, weighing the stone idol in one palm, inhaling the honey's faint perfume, leafing through the hymn book until the worn pages throbbed with unsung chord. The crystal ember of the heart, still locked in the observatory, pulsed in answer miles above them. Leighton felt its beat in his ribs. He closed the hymn book gently. "These songs speak of paths hidden, not forged," he said at last. Ellery pushed sweat-dark hair from her brow. "They beg to be sung anew. The people thirst for proof that the Dawnstar bled from their own legends, not from the will of high-born lords. Then we shall quench them." Leighton looked to where candles guttered in the draught. "We will hold a vigil at the base of the tower last night of this moon. All who bring a lantern, no matter how crude, may join. Baylor will see that bread and mulled wine flow without cost. The citadel chimes will toll thrice at dusk. The dawn blades will ring the city with steel, but only as shepherds, not gaolers. It must feel free." "Thou." Ellery smiled, but it trembled at the edges. "And the crown? Let the Iron Throne wake to find itself invited to a feast already finished." Word spread on donkey hooves and raven wings. A lantern vigil as winter's teeth dulled. Farmers and fishers, sailors and septons, thieves who cleaned their faces and smiths who forgot their pride. Each fashioned a lamp. Some carved turnips, staving them with tallow. Others borrowed painted glass from shrines. Many hung simple dishes of animal fat and sea salt wicks from twine. Throughout the reach small fires beckoned travelers. Wagons bound for Oldtown clogged every road. Merchants grumbled at delay until they realized delay minted coin. By the vigil eve, tents sprouted along the Honeywine like bright fungi, and songs in 20 dialects knotted in the air above muddy lanes. Baylor oversaw the provisioning from dawn till starrise. 50 bakeries fired ovens day and night. Coopers filled vast tuns with cider tinged crimson with pomegranate. When he passed, children shouted, "Bright water," and mothers pressed babies into his arms so that a Hightower touch might bless them. He donned a politician's smile and wielded it like a shield. But inside, he felt the blade of responsibility. Scrape, bone. If bread failed, prophecy tasted like ash. If the crowd rioted, the Dawnstar would dim. Baylor muttered accounts beneath his breath, the way others muttered prayers. Sir Martin's dawnblades patrolled in silent pairs, their shields freshly lacquered. No show of force, just a promise in steel. Some removed helmets to let the crowd see honest faces. Scarred, pocked, lined, yet human. Rumor claimed each carried a sliver of dawn blue crystal worked into sword pommels. In truth, only a dozen did. Deniston's supply limited, but rumor was better than fact. The vigil began under a sky like hammered bronze, cloudless, rimmed by a rimfire sunset. Lines of citizens climbed the broad tower causeway, each lantern swaying like a question mark in the dark. At the base plaza, Baylor's teams ladled soup into wooden bowls. Dawnblades guided traffic, lifting children onto shoulders so tiny arms might wave their lights. Melora stood upon the mid-ear balcony surveying the tide of flame. Her heart, steeled in scholarship, fluttered now in awe. Never had prophecy looked so alive. She glanced upward. The tower's blue beacon glimmered faint among the first stars, as if curious. Archmaester Deniston took quill to parchment high in the observatory, recording every breath of wind, every flicker in the heart's rhythm. Beside him Orwell hovered, more spectre than maester, muttering that crowds bred contagion, of body and of belief. Leighton emerged as bells tolled 3. He bore no sigil, no crown, only a plain lamp of clear glass. Its flame burned ordinary yellow. Yet when the people saw him, a hush swept the plaza. He raised the lamp overhead without speech. Thousands of lanterns mirrored the motion. In that instant, the Hightower's shadow vanished, replaced by a living sea of light. And somewhere in that crowd, a second hush, colder than the first, descended around a trio cloaked in traveler's rags. They bore no lanterns. Sharp eyes watched the tower's servants, marking patrol routes, counting archers upon walls. One whispered in a tongue borne across the jade sea. "Blue fire blinds the sheep. We shear while they stare." Another produced a vial of black sand. The third unwrapped a glass knife, thin enough to slip between ribs, without sound. They split, melting sidewise through press of pilgrims. Above, Deniston's quill snapped mid-stroke. The heart blinked like a startled eye. A tremor rippled through blue flame, gone in an eye blink. But he felt it. A wrong note in a symphony. An intrusion, he breathed. Orwell stiffened. A fault. No. A presence already. The first assassin reached the soup kettle line, spilled his own bowl with calculated clumsiness, and slid the black sand vial into the cauldron's base, where coals kept broth simmering. The sand hissed. No ordinary grit but ground obsidian steeped in widow's blood. A poison invisible to taste. Enough to sicken 1,000, to convince the masses that prophecy brought plague. The second uncovered an iron striker, near the timber staging where singers cued. She struck flint against steel, once, twice, gathering sparks into oiled wool. Her aim, a bright blaze to panic the throng into stampede. The third pushed inward toward the tower door itself, glass knife, palmed. If he could slit Leighton's throat beneath his own lantern's glow, the dawn would drown in blood. Sir Martin's head jerked as if yanked by puppet string, an intuition older than his scar. Eyes raking the crowd. He saw the striker's shower of sparks first, tiny but wrong. He lunged, shoving aside a startled septon. His gauntlet seized the woman's wrist mid-striking. Sparks died. Their eyes met. Hers black and hungry, his flint gray. She twisted. The striker clanged. Martin slammed elbow to jaw. Bone cracked. She sagged, but a hidden blade flashed from her sleeve. He kicked her knee, dropping her. A dawnblade rushed to bind her, but Martin's gaze already hunted for accomplices. Baylor, waist deep in accounts, did not see the sand assassin pour until a child screamed. High, piercing, more surprise than pain. Soup sloshed onto boots. The assassin spun, darting away. Baylor vaulted a crate, intercepting at a fruit stall. He tackled the man, both crashed through stacked apples. The vial shattered in contact with stone, poison seeping harmlessly underfoot. Baylor's fist met nose. Lantern lights haloed crimson spray. Merchants cheered as dawnblades dragged the sputtering captive away. The third assassin reached the inner cordon. Leighton still held his lamp aloft, unaware. The killer slipped behind a knot of worshippers, knife glinting once. Ellery, descending stairs with relic book in arms, caught that glint. She shouted. Melora above saw knife rise and screamed a warning. Leighton turned, in time for the assassin to slash. Steel found cloth but not flesh. Leighton twisted, lamp swinging. Hot oil splattered the assailant's face. He shrieked, clutching burned eyes. Dawn blades converged. The killer dropped, blade clattering. Leighton stood untouched, cloak torn, flame guttering. Pandemonium threatened, cries, jostling, fear blossoming like mold. Leighton raised his ruined lamp's smoking shell. Voice ringing as bell peal, he spoke 5 words. Light endures. Stand your ground. The phrase, simple as bread, poured calm through the crowd. Lanterns steadied. Fear receded like a tide. Sir Martin hauled the 3rd assassin away, blind man weeping. Leighton surveyed his children, Baylor bruised and blooded, Ellery wide-eyed, Melora stone-faced, and nodded gratitude that needed no speech. He beckoned them to him atop the low dais. Around them, the failing lamp guttered dead. Leighton placed its empty shell beside his feet, then accepted a fresh lantern from a small girl who offered it shyly. He raised that. The flame steadied. Lanterns across the plaza followed, and the vigil resumed, now tempered, stronger for having faced darkness. Above, the heart's tremor ceased. Deniston exhaled. Prophecy tested, he murmured, and not found wanting. Orwell dabbed sweat from brow. Or found but saved by chance. Deniston shook his head. By will. Before dawn, painters with nimble brushes and faster tongues spun the thwarted murders into legend. Posters rose on tavern walls showing Leighton standing amid assassins' blades, lantern in hand, blue tower glowing behind. Light endures. The phrase became countersign and prayer. Mothers whispered it, while tucking children beneath quilts. Smiths etched it on horseshoe nails. Within a week, bards at harbor, alehouses were singing. Stand your ground. A ballad so bawdy sailors wept laughing. The crown awoke at last. Ravens rattled into Oldtown bearing scrolls sealed with red wax imprinted by the hand of the king. Sir Bors Redwine, envoy of Queen Regent Myrcella, arrived aboard a sleek galley trimmed with Lannister gold. He came cloaked in courtesy yet flanked by 12 men-at-arms, younger sons of high lords, borrowed to remind Oldtown of royal reach. Baylor met him in the portico of the Starry Septique. Pleasantries were exchanged, a feast arranged. But Oldtown's streets whispered louder than any envoy. Citizens bowed to Baylor as he passed, calling him Lantern Prince. Sir Bors recorded this in a tidy cipher for the hand to fret over. On the night of the feast, Leighton remained absent, cloistered in observatory with Deniston and Melora, charting the heart's growth. Baylor presided in candlelit hall, silver goblets reflecting blue glints from glass lanterns. The envoy toasted the light's beauty, yet hedged talk with phrases such as, "His Grace is abiding concern for the balance of the realm," and "the delicate nature of unconventional flames." Baylor parried each with soft courtesy, filling goblets before they emptied. When dessert arrived, a tower-shaped confection of sugared almonds, the envoy coughed delicately. "To speak plain, Lord Baylor," he said, weighing syllables, "King's Landing requests modest tariffs on exports of your blue-tinted lantern oil, 20% of each barrel, for royal coffers. In exchange, His Grace will grant Hightower exclusive charter to transport grain through Blackwater Bay this spring." Baylor dabbed lips, mind racing. 20% of a trade not yet begun was a seed for future chokeholds. But refusal risked painting Oldtown rebellious. He smiled. "You have eaten our bread and taken our salt. Stay 3 nights. See the roads we mend, the mouths we feed." The envoy inclined head, dissatisfied. That night Baylor climbed to the observatory. Leighton stood with arms folded, blue halo limbing his hair. "The crown has come bargaining," Baylor said. Leighton's voice was quiet thunder. They come fearing. Fear offers terms, power sets them. We will give grain ships safe harbor, tax-free, but lantern oil remains ours to levy. Without compromise? Baylor's stomach tightened at vision of royal fleets. Without. Leighton turned. His eyes gleamed like aged emerald. We promised a dawn, Baylor. Dawns do not haggle. Bend. Far east, across the Sea of Dorn where summer never wholly died, the city of Korth received tales of a tower that swallowed stars. The pure-born debated whether such magic threatened trade routes. Shadowbinders from Ashai whispered of a door cracked in the world. Their whispers crept aboard spice ships bound west. One such galley, the Blushing Widow, slipped into Oldtown under banner of the free city of Volantis. Her cargo manifests bespoke saffron, dream wine, mirish lace. Hidden among crates lay a coffin-long box of black iron. The captain, a lean Valerian with shattered sigil tattoos, bribed harbor officials to expedite docking away from Citadel inspectors. That night, 3 men in robes, blacker than wine-dark tide, hoisted the iron box into a low-roofed warehouse by the fish market. They broke the seal. Inside coiled a bronze engine of hinged tubes and crystal eyes, an ancient Myrish device once used to chart eclipses. But these men were no astronomers. They trained the contraption on the Hightower's pinnacle, lenses adjusting, collecting stray motes of blue fire like venom into a glass phial at its core. Dawnstar blood, one murmured. They sealed the phial, wrapped it in leaded cloth, prepared courier birds bound for Pentos. Yet before sunrise Dawnblades raided the warehouse. Tips from harbor beggars, paid now in lantern-etched coin, had brought Martin swift. Steel clashed. 2 strangers died. The third fled across roofs, clutching phial. Melora, roused by horn, raced opposite along parapet. She leapt an alley gap, grappled the fleeing spy. They tumbled through thatch into an empty loft. The phial cracked in impact. Blue droplets sizzled where they landed, burning neat holes in floorboards. The stranger screamed as one droplet kissed his wrist. Skin blackened, bones smoked. Melora wrested free, drove dagger to throat. The spy convulsed, silence claiming him. She stared at smoldered holes, light weaponized. She wrapped her own cloak around the phial's shards, carried them to Deniston. He studied residue, eyes alight. They sought to distill the beacon, he whispered, to forge it elsewhere. Melora felt a chill. Can it be duplicated? In part. What is stolen is never entire. But enough slivers become a blade. She crushed the cloak tighter. Then we must guard not just the heart, but each spark. Spring thaw loosened the Mander's icy grip. Fields greened. Larks returned. Oldtown's docks groaned with barks crowding for lantern oil. Leighton set fair prices. High for lords, modest for common caravans. Gold flowed, but so did stories. Sailors carried Dawnstar leggings to every port. In King's Landing, street children scrawled blue flames on walls, while gold cloaks feigned blindness. Queen Regent Myrcella assembled council. The hand argued for restraint. Oldtown's wealth buttressed crown coin. But Ironborn raids had scarred the west coast. Stormlands rebuilt burned keeps, coffers bled. The master of coin urged seizing lantern trade outright. Myrcella, weary of bloodshed, instead charged the High Septon to investigate whether blue fire blasphemed the Seven. A convenient verdict might kneecap Hightower by faith. The High Septon dispatched Septon Inquisitor Jorman, a stern, thin man whose sermons smelled of brimstone, south with 200 warriors' sons. They arrived during the Springtide Festival, when hillside orchards bloomed white as hope. Jorman strode through Oldtown streets preaching that unnatural flame begat false idols. He challenged the Citadel to prove the Dawnstar aligned with 7 scripture. Crowds hissed. Some spat. Dawnblades held lines, but offered no brawl. Leighton invited Jorman to discourse in the Starry Sept's library, under mosaic dome older than both of them. The Septon entered bristling. He emerged pale, sweat slick, refusing to speak of what passed between them. Rumor swore Leighton showed him scrolls penned by the smith's first mortal hand. Others claimed the heart pulsed in Leighton's palm, until Jormung's own heart mirrored rhythm. Regardless, the Septon withdrew next day, leaving only a quartet of clerks to observe. Their reports vanished from the capital. Denniston labored beneath the observatory in a new forge. Star-metal ingots, rare as tears of the moon, melted in crucibles, laced with dawn powder residue. He folded the alloy around a core rod of heart steel, shaved, thin, as reed. The result? A sword that shimmered blue along fuller even when sheathed. He named it First Light. Sir Martin hefted the blade, its balance sublime. In torch glow, it sliced air like dawn wind. Martin knelt and offered the sword to Leighton. The Lord accepted, eyes distant. "Steel will be needed," Leighton said. "Yet steel alone cannot shape dawn." "Steel defends," Martin replied simply. "Without defense, dawn never blooms." Leighton rested palms on First Light's crossguard. "Then keep it. The sword belongs to the watcher at the gate." Martin's chest tightened. "I am honored. Guard our gates well, brother." Beyond the reach, storms brewed. In Dorne, Prince Quentin Sand lined Scorpion Pass with garrisons, wary that a new power might overshadow Sunspear's fragile autonomy. In the Riverlands, petty lords sought alliances. Ravens flew to Oldtown, bearing seals of houses once indifferent. Some offered grain, some shipwrights, some daughters. A letter came from River Run, writ by Lord Edmure Tully, requesting an embassy discuss trade along the Red Fork. Baelor agreed to ride northward after harvest, taking 50 dawn blades. Melora packed scrolls for mapping new beacons along river lighthouses. Allery sailed west to the Shield Islands where pirate rumors rose. She brought lanterns and songs, turned fisher villages into early warning watchposts. She learned to dance the shield-made reels, laughter ringing over surf until even weathered sailors marveled that prophecy could taste like joy. Leighton remained in the tower, but his dreams soared farther than children's feet. Each midnight he climbed alone above observatory, carrying no lamp. There he whispered to the heart in Valyrian older than any maester knew. Stars wheeled overhead, blue flame twined around him. Sometimes dawn found him still. Frost on lashes, yet warmth coiling about shoulders. Servants whispered he needed no sleep, that prophecy itself fed him. Denniston feared, Orwell prayed. Summer crept across the reach in gold footsteps. Wheat bowed heavy, orchards bent with fruit. Oldtown thrummed as a hive. Hammers rang, choristers practiced dawn hymns, docks stretched to birth new piers. Yet horizons darkened. One twilight riders from the Dornish marches arrived, dusty and blood-spattered. Bandits flying the banner of a burning sword, or lore fanatics, had sacked a lantern depot near Bitterbridge, slaying guards, torching stores. Survivors claimed a red priest named Lady Naris led them, preaching that only the red god's flame must guide men, not blue heresy. Leighton convened council. Baelor argued dispatching 100 dawn blades to hunt the zealots. Melora cautioned, each sword away thinned city's shield. Martin volunteered to ride with half his guard. His grip on First Light promised retribution. Denniston wondered aloud if confrontation fed opposition's prophecy hunger. Leighton listened, then pronounced, "We shall answer flame with water." He ordered a convoy of healers, grain wagons, and singers to follow Martin's blades. They would rebuild what bandits burned, feed villagers, bury dead. The sword would move unseen until needed. Mercy would walk first. Martin's jaw tightened, but he obeyed. The convoy set forth at dawn. Along the Mander Road, fields rippled ochre. Villagers knelt as First Light passed, blue edge reflecting sunrise. Martin rode at column's head, helm off so all might see scar and resolve. Behind trundled wagons, striped with Dawnstar banners, azure tower on white. 6 days' ride brought them to Bitterbridge's outskirts, where charred beams still smoldered. Martin ordered healers to set up tents. Wheat fields hosted makeshift pyres for the slain. As dust-painted sky rose red, dawnblades dug graves. In birdsong hush, Martin lifted First Light, its blade catching last sunbeams, blue overlaying red horizon, hope bisecting carnage. On second night, scouts found the Zealots' camp and gully north of the grass road. Martin drew 20 blades and slipped through cedar shadows. They saw tents in crescent, braziers burning oily red, a wooden effigy of the Hightower draped in scarlet cloth aflame. Priests danced, chanting. Lady Naris, a tall woman with hair like fresh blood, stood before the effigy, arms raised, eyes reflecting twin infernos. Martin stepped into Brazier's glow. First light whispered, free of scabbard. Light endures. Stand your ground, he shouted. Zealots whirled. Some fled at sight of blue blade. Others rushed with curved knives. Dawn blades met them, steel kissing crimson sparks. Martin's sword sliced through cloth and flesh, blue contrail lingering after every stroke. Lady Naris slipped among combatants, fire swirling in palms. She hurled flame. A Dawnblade's shield blossomed into burning petals. Martin advanced, blade whistling arcs that extinguished flames by presence alone. He parried her torch staff, blue met red, crackling. Sparks rained. Nares hissed. False dawn ends in ash. Martin's riposte, cleaved, staff midshaft. He backhanded pommel to her temple. She staggered. He pressed, but something in her eyes, not fear, but recognition, halted final blow. She whispered, blue flame births, shadow beyond sky. You guard doom. Martin frowned, doubt a finger on his spine. In that heartbeat, she slipped a dagger toward his ribs. Reflex carved her down. First light flashed. Nares fell, crimson pooling. Her breath wheezed. Martin knelt. What shadow? She smiled, blood froth. When second dawn rises, third darkness wakes. Tell your lord. Her eyes dulled. The zealots scattered. Dawnblades doused camp braziers. Starless night claimed valley. Martin cleaned blade in grass, mind churning. In Oldtown, Deniston pored over astrolabes. The heart's glow waned irregularly, then brightened beyond prior measure. He charted pulses against comet paths, noticed peaks aligning with solstice approach. He summoned Melora. The heart climbs toward a second effulgence, he said, finger tapping vellum. A second dawn. She echoed Naris's final words in her memory. Her stomach tightened. It will flare thrice what we saw, Deniston continued. A wonder, yet apex unstable. Prism may fracture. If it does, shards could fall, burning. Melora nodded slowly. We must reinforce, and ready contingencies. Deniston touched her arm. Tell your father soon, but gently. She climbed spiral stairs, each step heavier. She found Leighton, gazing out windowsill. City lights winking. She relayed Deniston's findings. Naris warning, the risk of fracture. Leighton listened. Expression unreadable beneath blue-lit shadows. 8 dawn, summon a conclave, he said. We adapt. Melora lingered. Father. Prophecy grows wild. Are we shepherd or reed swept along? Leighton's gaze remained on distant horizon. We are tower. Winds bend around stone but cannot move it. Yet stone may crack from within. That I must ponder. Mendawindero. Bela returned from Riverlands bearing treaties of grain and ship timbers, but also letters hinting that Highgarden stirred. Lord Garland Tyrrell, acting warden while Willis warred with gout, had massed 2,000 levies ostensibly for bandit patrols. Baylor caught subtext. Tyrrell's weighed blessing or blocking Hightower ascendancy. Leighton convened his conclave beneath crystal chandelier. Present. Baylor, Melora, Allery, newly returned. Martin, travel-worn, Deniston, Orwell, and a guest. Lord Mathis Rowan of Goldengrove. Sworn Tyrell bannerman yet sympathetic. He'd arrived unannounced, palm raised in peace. Rowan spoke first. Highgarden fears losing market tithes. Yet they fear more standing alone if Hightower severs lantern trade. Offer them stake, share part of blue oil rights. In return, Tyrell banners shield your roads. Mutual bond, not contest. Baylor considered. Rose wants petals in every garland. But if we grant too much, They strangle root. Bindle. Melora. A stake keeps them loyal but dependent. Deniston. And their levies might help quell zealot resurgence. Martin. Voice gravel. Guard swords shorten walls at home. Leighton turned to Allery. What sings in Shield Islands? She answered, Fisherfolk call us guiding star. But pirate lords sniff treasure. Without Tyrell fleets, we face raids along the Mander Delta. Silence brewed. Orwell cleared throat. Compromise then. 40% rights to lantern oil exported via Tyrell ports. In return, Highgarden funds fortress beacons along river mouths, garrisons them, and swears to defend Tower roads. And so, Baylor nodded reluctantly. We gain shields and lose less than half profit. Leighton lifted hand. But we also bind ourselves to Roe's ambition. Rowan smiled thinly. Better Roe's thorns at side than in flesh. Leighton weighed. Finally, I will offer 30%, and require Tyrell scions fostered here as pledge. Rowan exhaled. That may prick pride, yet price likely met. Decision sealed. Ravens prepared. Leighton dismissed all but Melora. She waited. You sense fracture, he said. Yes. Remember when you first climbed these walls? He gestured at dark sky. You told me towers yearn upward yet owe existence to every stone beneath. If heart flares too strong, stones below crack. I must descend, Melora. Walk streets again, feel mortar. She blinked. You? Among crowds? I have been symbol too long. Symbols calcify. I need mortal marrow. He smiled faintly. Will daughter guide a wandering old man? Her laughter startled both. She bowed. Light endures. We stand our ground. Nam. Next morning, Leighton cloaked himself in plain wool dyed nut brown and walked Oldtown's lanes with Melora and 2 quiet dawn blades at distance. Fishmongers hawked silver eels. Dye workers stirred vats. Children played lantern ball with hoops. Leighton stopped to help a boy retrieve toy boat from gutter, hands muddying. The mother thanked him, not knowing his name. He breathed brine, tar, bread, heard gossip unfiltered. At a potter's lane, he lingered to watch artisans etch Dawnstar sigils on mugs. One potter, an elderly woman with kiln-scarred palms, said, Blue flame lights dark corners, but too much glare blinds. Leighton nodded, purchasing a mug. The woman pressed second mug free, saying, For whoever guards your nights. Farther on, they entered the Salty Stave, tavern near docks. Sailors recited exaggerated stories. Hightower stone made of dragon bones. Leighton eating nothing but starlight. He chuckled softly. A barmaid poured beer. Leighton sipped, savoring earthy tang. Melora watched him, heart warming. Yet midday bells tolled, echoing unnatural resonance. Deep, thrumming. Leighton's mug quivered. He looked west. The Hightower's beacon flickered, then blazed bright even in broad sun. Deniston, atop observatory, gasped. The heart's second effulgence arrived early, unheralded by equinox charts. It ballooned within prism, facets humming. Microcracks spidered glass. He tried to modulate flow. Gears shriek. Orwell fled down steps. Acolytes scattered. A shard popped free, slicing Deniston's cheek. He shouted for dampeners. Alchemical tubes meant to siphon excess, but blue fire surged beyond mechanism. The heart pulsed thrice. Boom, 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 like war drums of the cosmos. In streets, citizens shielded eyes. Leighton flinched at radiance. Melora grabbed his arm. We must return. They dashed through alleys. Dawn blades cleared way. Up tower stairs they raced. Heat rose as from forge. Deniston fought controls, beard singed. Melora burst in. Leighton followed. Prism strain, Deniston cried. If it shatters, molten shards, rain channel. Leighton strode to heart. Blue wind, lashing cloak. ... He placed both hands on sphere, eyes narrowing. Flame roared but did not burn him. He breathed slow, drawing excess into himself. A vent, soul crucible. pain-seared ribs. Marrow. He saw visions. Oceans of black glass, a door above sky. Shapes without form stirring. Voices whispered of third darkness. He stiffened, forced breath out. Channeling surged down towers, copper veins into sea conduits engineered for storms. Prism cracks sealed with glow like molten glass rejoining. Light stabilized, returning to steady azure hum. Deniston slumped, weeping relief. Leighton swayed. Melora caught him. His skin glowed faint, but lines aged deeper. He whispered, "Price owed." Deniston wiped blood. "Heart evolves. Next effulgence may dwarf this." Leighton nodded. "We must fashion new vessel. Strong as Valyria, supple as reeds, and gather allies beyond steel and coin." Melora frowned. "Who?" Leighton's gaze pierced horizon, mind on Nara's final prophecy. "Ones who know darkness intimately." Autumn leaves reddened. Raven from Highgarden arrived. Lord Garland accepted 30% share, agreed to foster second son in Oldtown. Fleet of green and gold longships sailed to Shield Islands within month. But another Raven came inked in red wax, broken in transit. It bore no seal, only words in High Valyrian. The door stirs. Watch the twice-lit lantern. Beneath, symbol of a seven-pointed star eclipsed by circle. Deniston puzzled. Melora recalled Nari's warning. Leighton ordered inquiry into ancient texts. Ellery scoured shepherd hymnals. Twice-lit lantern appeared once in fragment describing a tower that lit dawn and dusk but opened night eternal between. Martin, patrolling docks, learned of sailors found dead with eyes burned black, tiny blue flame mark on palms. Investigations revealed they'd tried to distill lantern oil into smoking paste, inhaled fumes. Dead men's lips spoke fragments of unknown tongue as they died. Orwell declared plague. Deniston argued metaphysical backlash. Leighton remained silent until dawn meeting where gulls cried like mourning pipes. "Second effulgence cracked prism," he said, "but healed. A third may not grant mercy. We must prepare to dim heart before that day." Baylor blinked. "Extinguish? Not extinguish. Braid. Lantern must share light with other towers, separate hearts diffusing heat." He laid map, dots marking potential beacons. River runs low keep, Dragonstone, if Targaryen pretender allowed. Even far the Arbor's lighthouse. We seed smaller flames, channel surge across veins. Like rivers relieving flood. Deniston's eyes widened. Network of resonance. Brilliant. But forging hearts elsewhere demands star metal, dawn powder, rituals. Leighton met families' gazes. Hence, alliances. Rowan, Tyrell, Tully. Perhaps even Volantine Magisters, if coin persuades. And Watchers of Shadow, Ashai. Provided we keep leash. Nemtau. Melora. And time. Equinoctial charts predict third surge within 2 years. Maybe less. Leighton smiled thinly. Then we build fast. Messages flew swift. Baylor rode north again to Tully and Stark. Ellery sailed Arbor. Melora traveled to Lyce disguised as scribe, courting alchemists. Martin trained new guard units rebranded Horizon Wardens, posted along trade veins. Deniston worked day and night, refining dawn powder. Safer, cooler ta-da. In his solitude, Leighton meditated with heart nightly. With each communion, he grew frailer in flesh yet fiercer in presence. Servants whispered. He walked corridors, leaving luminescent footprints that faded by sunrise. One night Melora returned, clothes smelling of spiced Lys wine. She found Leighton in observatory, a quill of star metal in his hand. He drafted sigils onto vellum, arcane geometry. "Glyphs for stabilizer array," he said. "Will wrap prism like lattice. Needs gold thread soaked in ghostgrass resin." She swallowed. "Father, your hands shake." He looked. Indeed, tremor marred calligraphy. "Price," he murmured. "Light demands tithe." Melora knelt, taking quill. Then let daughter pay part. She resumed drafting. Winter's herald blew early that year, snow swirling across Reach Plains. Supplies convoyed to new beacon sites faced bandit ambush, frostbite. Highgarden honored pledge, dispatching rose-cloaked soldiers to guard roads. In Pentos, the Iron Bank weighed investing in Lantern Network for trade security. In Bravos, kindly men saw flickers of blue in pool near Black Wall, muttered of prophecy crossing seas. Back in Oldtown, heart thrummed steady, yet Deniston noticed micro-fluctuations increasing monthly. He predicted third surge maybe within 18 moons, not 2 years. Council met in stone chamber ringed by flickering candles. Baylor brought chartered carpenters for river beacon build. Ailery had arbor lord's pledge, and crates of greenheart planks. Martin hammered schedule for horizon wardens escorting shipments. Deniston presented lattice sketches. Orwell fretted shortages. Leighton listened, then stood, voice low yet carrying. Light endures, he began. We stand ground not for ourselves, but for those who wander darkness. But dawn and darkness are twins. We must befriend twilight or perish. Thus I propose sending envoy to Ashai. For their shadowbinders know secrets of tempering light with night. Silence. Orwell gasped. Deniston frowned. Melora's eyes widened. Baylor spoke. Ashai's ships seldom sail. Their mages traffic in cursed arts. Bringing them touches blasphemy. True, Leighton said. Yet they alone walk beyond door memory. If third darkness lurks, we need map. Martin laid fist to chest. Send me, with first light. Let their shadows test steel. Nine. Leighton placed hand on his shoulder. This task needs more than sword. Needs mind to parse riddles. He turned to Melora. Your scholarship, daughter. She inhaled. I will go. Baylor protested but lay silenced with glance. She will not travel alone. Allery will accompany. Songs soften edges. Martin's blade will ward. Deniston's student Maester Toth will marshal lore. A fleet of 2 Tyrell longships granted for sea legs. Plan sealed. Preparations begun. Citizens marveled at blue bonfire send-off under crisp starlight. Melora clasped Leighton before boarding. Heart may surge while we sail, she warned. He smiled wanly. I feel its tide, yet I trust my tower. She kissed his brow. Stone endures, he whispered, and water shapes stone. Weeks passed. Ships battled storms off Summer Sea, rounding Valeria's smoking ruin where waters boiled. Martin's men glimpsed shadows slithering under waves. Ellery sang to steady hearts. Back home, Deniston completed lattice forging. Artisans installed threads like spiderweb about prism. Heart pulsed approval. Leighton felt stronger. Ravens from beacon sites reported progress. River Beacon Starmiddle Cup forged. Arbor Tower foundation set. Dragonstone negotiations stalled. Pretender Aegon demanded marriage alliance. Baylor weighed options. Highgarden's second son. Ser Derek Tyrell, fostered in Oldtown. Studied with Citadel by day, sparred with Dawnblades by dusk. He adopted Dawnstar insignia on cloak, causing Tyrell diplomats heartburn. But letter praising progress. Then a raven black as coal arrived from Martin's fleet, only single scrap. Shadow gains shore. Night's door yawns. Lantern dims, unseen dot. Leighton's hand clenched parchment until blue sparks danced. Heart pulsed anxious. He prepared to gather counsel when tremor shook tower. Not from beacon but earth itself. Glass rattled. A low moan rose from stone, as if deep ones stirring. Deniston raced in. Quake centered beneath whispering sound trench. Unnatural. Leighton steadied. Darkness stirs in our absence. He looked northward, beyond walls, beyond seas. Toward children's voyage. He whispered, Find twilight, Melora. Return before third dawn, or all fades. Bendawand. The heart glowed, casting long blue shadows that reached floor like grasping fingers. And outside, first snowflakes of deep winter began to fall, each catching blue light, drifting like embers of a prophecy, still forging itself in the furnace of the world. Ka. The Tyrell galley Larkspur shuddered under a choleric wind, its green and gold pennants beaten ragged as the vessel clawed eastward through slate-gray swells. Melora Hightower stood at the prow, cloak plastered to her frame by salt spray, knuckles white on the rail. Ahead, the lamplight-dotted hull of the sister ship Arbor's Pride rose and fell like a breathing leviathan, mastyards groaning under reefed canvas. Somewhere amid those darkened decks, Allery coaxed nervous sailors into softly humming dawn hymns. Their thin voices drifted across the water, met by the hollow boom of breakers on the shattered Valerian coast, 2 leagues to starboard. Sir Martin's boots rang on the soaked planks behind her. He had donned a hauberk of river steel mail washed in dawn-blue resin, but the armor's sheen muted under bruised clouds. First light rode his back, wrapped in oiled canvas. Even muffled the blade prickled the air with latent heat. He halted beside her, squinting at the jagged silhouette of dead men's lands rising like broken fangs off the port bow. "Storm hunting us through Blackwater Reach," he growled. "Captain says if we don't make the gullet by dusk, we may founder among those rocks." Melora glanced north. The sky above the Kingswood seethed violet black. Better a storm than Euron's war spoils, she said, though her tone lacked conviction. Rumor placed the Ironborn Reavers riding Kent and Massey's hook. The Reach fleet's patrols had whittled their squadrons, but a crippled kraken could still pull a sailor beneath. Martin leaned in, voice low. "My scouts whisper of sails bearing a red sun on black amidst the kraken packs, Lady Naris's zealots or kin thereof. If they know we hold heart secrets, they'll brave any gale." Melora studied the horizon where waves foamed alabaster around volcanic spires. "Then we outrun both. Captain Elifer knows these shallows, trust his charts." Martin grunted, unconvinced. A gale howled down, snapping a foretopsail iris blue. The canvas split like parchment, freelancers scrambling with reef lines while curses drowned in wind. Melora's eyes flashed as the mast bucked. She pressed a palm to the rail and whispered a steadier's charm she had learned from a Lyseni alchemist. A mere mnemonic, yet the words calmed her racing pulse. "Below," Martin said, jerking his chin aft. "The crew's less likely to pitch us into the drinks if we're not in sight." She hesitated, gaze fixed on the eastern horizon where a rent in the clouds bled amber, the first spark of sunrise. She fancied she saw a flicker of different light there, deeper blue, shaped like a narrow road. Heart light, or imagination, fed by absence of the tower's steady pulse. At last she nodded. Together they crossed the slick deck, pausing to lash themselves to the midship's rail as another wave crashed. They ducked into the companionway stairs, lanterns rattling overhead. Below, the lower cabin thrummed with anxious energy. Maester Toth, silver hair cropped close, charts tucked beneath one arm, argued with the Tyrell navigator over star fixes, rendered moot by cloud cover. Allery knelt at a makeshift shrine fashioned from a coil of greenheart rope and a chipped lantern, singing a lullaby in the old tongue to the cabin boy who clutched her hand. Sailors filed past, touching the lantern's cold rim. When Melora entered, conversation faltered. She unfastened her soaked cloak, water pooling at her boots. "Captain?" Elifer emerged from the map room, eyes bloodshot. "We're making 4 knots, lady. Between reefs and gale, it's prayer and elbow grease keeps the keel intact. If we cut closer to Valeria's sorrowed coast, we can cheat the headwind, risk the smoking shoals. Massen. Better scoured hull than shattered masts," Melora said, drawing on her father's unflinching decisiveness. "Steer us in, but post lookouts. Vapors there can melt pitch in minutes." Elifer nodded, already barking orders topside. Ellery rose, squeezing the child's fingers before returning him to a burly deckhand. She crossed the sway to Melora, braids undone by moisture, eyes luminous in lantern glow. "The men whisper of fires on the sea, blue flickers chasing us. I saw nothing certain." Melora placed both hands on Allery's shoulders. "But we heed portents. Be ready." Martin loosed the binding on first light and laid the wrapped bundle across the table where chart weights slid with every pitch. If something wearing flame sails our wake, steel will greet it. The ship lurched starboard. Everyone clutched at bulkheads. Wood creaked. The smell of wet rope filled the hold. Then a shout rang from topside. "Fire off the beam!" Melora's heart seized. She snatched a oilskin hood and raced with Martin up the narrow stair to the deck. The storm's breath slapped her. Rain now slanted like thrown needles. To port, barely 2 cables away, a low, dark vessel clawed through the waves. Oars flashing black in the thin dawn. A prow carved like a burning sword. On its mast, crimson cloth snapped. A sunburst of red on sable. Ellery burst topside behind them. "Zealots," she whispered, voice drowned by wind but clear in dread. Captain Nilifer shouted orders. The Larkspur's crew heeled hard to starboard, angling to rake the enemy with crossbow bolts. But the zealot ship moved preternaturally, cutting across wave troughs like a water skeeter. Melora's eyes widened. At its bow, a bronze brazier burned, high and steady despite the gale. Flame eerily blue tinged with red veins. Martin ripped canvas from first light. Dawn steel blazed turquoise in storm gloom. "Boarding grapple in 30 breaths," he predicted. He turned to Melora. Below with the knowledge. She shook her head. "I stand." Another wave broke. Grapnel irons sailed from the zealot vessel, hooking rail. Sailors hacked at lines, but 4 held fast. Red-robed figures leapt over foaming divide, boots hissing steam where salt met their garments. They wielded glass spears that glowed ember orange at their tips. Martin met the first with a sweep. First light split spear haft, lopped through shoulder. The zealot's corpse spilled black blood that hissed like oil. Melora seized a deck hook, parried a spear thrust aimed at Ellery while shouting for aft archers. Thunder cracked overhead. Rain hissed off storm sail. Ellery whirled with a galleyman sea axe, catching a zealot across the calf. He toppled, howling prayers to shadowed gods. On the zealot ship, drums started. Deep, arrhythmic. Melora ducked, instinct driving her under a spear, then lunged upward to slam the hook into attacker's throat. The deck pitched. She flung aside deadweight, scanning for the brazier. Heart of their flame. It loomed above rail on enemy prow, lashed to iron cradle, blue-red fire dancing like hungry serpent. "Cut the cradle," she shouted to Martin. He saw, nodded once. He charged, bearing first light like a dawn shard. 3 zealots barred gangplank. He smashed through, blades shrieking bright arcs. Blood steamed into rain. Behind him, Ellery followed, 2 deckhands guarding her flanks. Melora grabbed a discarded spear, vaulted rail onto enemy deck. Heat washed her skin. Flame's roar changed pitch, as though sensing intrusion. She advanced, deflecting arrow shafts launched from stern. First light severed cradle chains. Sparks flew. The brazier tottered, but a female zealot, tall, bald-skulled, painted with runes, thrust hands into the fire and drew forth a rope of living flame. She twirled it like whip, striking Martin's blade. Metal hissed but held. Melora thrust spear butt against brazier's base. Heavy iron tipped. The bowl spilled. A cascade of burning oil doused foredeck and zealot priestess alike. She shrieked as fire devoured her runes. But flame spread. Blue tongues raced across tarred planks toward powder kegs stacked midships. Martin grabbed Melora's arm, yanking her back across gangplank even as Larkspur's sailors severed lines. Ellery scrambled after, cloak ablaze at hem. She rolled on wet deck to smother sparks. The zealot vessel sheared away, unable to steer, for a flame. Moments later, powder stores ignited. A white-blue flash swallowed ship in towering column, thunder shredding storm's roar. Heated wind knocked crew flat. Fragments of burning beam pattered onto sea, hissing. Melora coughed, chest heaving. Martin crouched beside her, singed hair smoking. "Heart's mercy," he rasped. That was no common fire. She stared at the wreck's boiling remains. A fragment of the heart. Stolen. Crude. Unstable. Memory of the file in Oldtown chilled her. Ellery limped forward. They would rather die than let us reach Ashai. Which means, Melora said, wiping soot from brow. Ashai holds an answer they fear. 2 weeks passed in uneasy silence. The gale relented. Seas calmed to a glassy charcoal under wan sky. The larkspur and arbor's pride limped south along the summer sea's temperate currents, hulls patched with driftwood. Beyond them, volcanic plumes marked the ghost of Valyria. To starboard, the jade gates opened onto the saffron-scented straits leading to Korth, but they held course for the shadowed coast beyond Lesser Aragorn. One dawn the water turned black as ink, Ashai's river effluent curling into sea. Memories of sailors' tales, ships' hulls shining like lacquer under moon, children born eyeless for mothers bathing in the waters, haunted the crew. Many refused to sing. Lanterns were shuttered though sun already hid beneath smog. The city of Ashai by the shadow appeared on the horizon like a graveyard of monuments. Basalt ziggurats rising arrow-straight, windows like blind sockets. No gull circled. Only the hush of water lapping obsidian quay stones. Captain Illifer anchored well offshore. A splinter crew rowed Melora, Martin, Allery, Maester Toth, and 6 wardens toward the silent wharf. No horn announced arrival. Only the whisper of oars. At dock, black-robed figures awaited. Lanterns of carved bone suspended from chains. The robed leader inclined a skeletal thin hand. Lantern-bearers from west. The sable tower foresaw your crossing. Melora stepped forward, bows low. We come seeking counsel on flame that births dawns and threatens night. Will the shadow give answer? The figure's hood dipped. All lights cast shadows. Enter. Pay the price. Then? Martin tensed, but Melora nodded. They followed along Basalt Promenade, torches guttering strange violet flames. The city streets lay empty, save for feral cats with smoky eyes and children wrapped in funeral silks, who stared unblinking at the foreigners. They reached a great square dominated by a building named the Hall of Masks, pillars carved with faces of every race, mouths open in silent wails. Inside, air chilled lungs like grave ice. The robed escorts guided them to a central chamber where crystal orbs floated in chains, each holding swirling darkness. A woman awaited on obsidian dais. Hair bone white, skin black as jet, robes woven from spider silk. Around her brow circled an iron band set with a shard of midnight glass. I am Silvertongue, voice of shadow. Speak. Melora held the potter's mug gifted by the Oldtown matron, its clay etched with Dawnstar. She set it on dais. Our heart flares bright. Too bright. A third effulgence may shatter our world. We seek. Silvertongue lifted hand. The twice-lit lantern. Melora's breath caught. You know of it. We know that when mortal towers reach for stars, the stars reach back. The door above sky cracks. Those who opened first dawn were dragons. Their doom lingers still. Ban. She gestured. An orb drifted toward Melora. Within swirled a vista, various towers ablaze, dragons screaming, sky rent by black rift, through which winged shadows writhed. Silvertongue's voice echoed. Dawn-kindled flame weakens barriers. Each heart pulse is hammer strike upon gate of night. Third strike wakes sleeper. Maester Toth scribbled furiously, eyes wide. Ellery stepped forward. If dawn weakens gate, what mends? A wick of night, inside flame, Silvertongue said. Opposite bound together to burn steady. Martin scowled. Rare riddles. Speak plain. Silvertongue's gaze flickered to him. Steel cannot cleave cosmic doors, warrior. Needs binding of light and shadow. She turned to Melora. Bind your heart with its mirror. Shadow glass seated at tower's roots before first stone laid. Only then will flame glow yet guard. Melora frowned. Shadow glass. Some claim Hightower built on fused black stone older than Oldtown. Silvertongue spread palms. Fine shard, cradle within lattice. Not temper, but temperance. Then third surge becomes singing tide, not storm. Mendemander. Where is Shard? Martin asked. Silvertongue's lips curled. Beneath Oldtown sleeps a thing the first mariners chained with salt sigils. Its heart is shadowglass. Harvest at cost. Melora swallowed. What cost? Silvertongue's eyes flared silver. Blood of one who bears dawn within veins. Silence numbed chamber. Martin's hand moved unconsciously toward Melora's sleeve. Ellery paled. Toth's quill stopped scratching. Silvertongue stepped down dais. Choose sacrifice or let gate open. The sleeper's hunger is older than sun. Da. Melora gathered breath. Blood? Alone? Or life? A cupful may suffice if courage is deep. She touched Melora's temple with cold fingertip. But Dawn's bearer must bleed in the deep where shadow roosts. Martin shook his head. We will find other way. None. Silvertongue retreated. Return west swift. Third effulgence dawns before second harvest moon. Boundaries thin already, look to seize. Melora bowed stiffly. We will pay the price. The tower endures. As they departed, Silvertongue called after. Remember, light unchecked blinds. Shadow unbound devours. Weave them or lose both. 3 days later, the Tyrell galleys rode fair winds, leaving Ashai's cursed coast behind. A hush lay over the deck. Ellery cooled Melora's brow with damp cloth. As the scholar stared at cloud sails. Father will refuse such sacrifice, Martin muttered nearby. Melora answered weakly. Father prepared to pay his own life before. He will give my blood without hesitation if it saves realm. Ellery glared. No blood without seeking alternatives. Maester Toth spoke from chart table. Shadowglass may be mined by volunteers. Perhaps blood of Dawnless will work. Melora smiled sadly. Silvertongue spoke true riddles, Maester. Heart recognizes kin. Only those touched by heart's pulse carry its dawn. That is Hightower line. She turned to Martin. You, Baylor, even father. But I drank heart's breath when I birthed its ember. The bond is mine. Martin's teeth clenched. He gripped first light until knuckles whitened. Ellery whispered. Then share the cup. Each of us bears touch now. Melora frowned. Maybe. But truth lies beneath tower. We must return. She rose, tottering. Martin steadied her. Overhead, storm petrels cried. Oldtown's winter sky hung low when the galleys docked. Dawn blades lined quays in rigid rows. Leighton awaited under tower arch, robe rippling cobalt. When Melora disembarked, her father reached to clasp her hand. At contact, a shock of blue sparked between palms. Heart recognizing its vessel. Leighton's eyes widened, reading unspoken truths. They convened council in observatory, lattice humming overhead. Melora relayed Ashai's vision, price, and timetable. Silence deepened with each word. Baylor slammed fist on table. Bleed my sister? Never. Denderwai. Indirawal. Deniston stroked beard. Binding light with shadow may neutralize surge. Theoretical but plausible. Orwell paled. Mining under tower risks collapse and old legends of deep ones. Ellery said, we share the sacrifice. Leighton closed eyes. When he spoke, voice rasped like wind through crypt. I will bleed. Melora shook head. You bear heart, but not bond. My ember sparked first. Leighton opened eyes shining. Then we both bleed. Light and its maker. He turned to Deniston. Summon mason divers, archive maps of crypt tunnels. We descend tonight. Surge approaches. Feel tremors. Denderol. Indeed, the heart pulsed quicker. Drumming walls. Crackles of blue arced to lattice, contained but angry. At sunset, a small expedition gathered at base of Hightower. Martin in river steel, first light sheathed. Melora in scholar's leathers, airy with satchel of herbs. Deniston with alchemist files. Baylor behind to oversee but remain topside. 6 wardens bore lanterns of seawater glass. Leighton led, staff tipped with blue gem. They followed an ancient spiral descending beneath sea level. air damp with brine. Barnacle fossils studded walls, proof stone once met tide. Deeper still, masonry ended. Tunnel opened into cavern where salty mist rose. Water pooled black around stone columns carved like kneeling titans. At center lay a disk of shadow glass, 20 paces across. Surface mirror smooth. Light and light. Runes circled rim. Sigils of ancient mariners mixed with Valyrian glyph for door. Leighton approached, breath frosting though air warm. The disk thrummed, a heartbeat that echoed hard above. Deniston unpacked silver chisels, forged with dawn powder. Edge thin as promise, he muttered. Martin planted torch. Its flame dimmed near glass. He drew first light. Azure glow pushed back darkness. Leighton gestured Melora nearer. Cupful each, he said, holding crystalline chalice. Mix with molten shard, reforge unity. Melora swallowed an extended forearm. Martin took dagger, hesitated. She nodded. Quick slice. Crimson weld. Leighton caught drops into chalice. He cut his own palm, doubling portion. Deniston set chisel to disc. Sparks blue-black danced. A sliver of shadow glass flaked off. Void dark, edges smoke-like. He slipped shard into chalice. Blood bubbled, turning wine dark violet. The cavern trembled. From pool of seawater a shape rose. Amorphous, whale-sized, skin oily obsidian shot with starlight. No eyes, only a ringed mouth of lanternfish fangs. It keened, soundless yet bone-deep. Ellery shrieked. Wardens raised spears. Martin stepped forward. First light blazing. Leighton lifted chalice. The creature halted mid-rise, body rippling. Leighton spoke old tongue vow. Light endures. Shadow abides. Door remains shut. He poured blood-glass elixir onto disc. Liquid hissed, webbing across surface in veins of purple light. Disc glowed, then brightened into dim azure mirroring heart's hue. The creature moaned, retracting into water like pulled tar. Bubbles roiled, then calm. Above, heart pulse steadied, yet stronger, richer, as though deep organ had found counterpart. Leighton sagged. Melora caught him though blood dripped still. Ellery bound their wounds in linen soaked with herb paste. Deniston harvested cooling residue, new alloy of dawn and shadow. Martin scanned dark. We should leave before door tests us again. They ascended, hearts pounding. At Guardian Gate, Baylor met them. The heart glow changed. Softer. He saw blood-soaked dressings, paled. Was price paid? Leighton raised binding hand. Paid. And accepted. Days followed frantic craft. Deniston alloyed Shadow Dawn residue into lattice joints, weaving new runework. Maesters scribbled formulae under Orwell's wary eyes. Martin drilled wardens, senses sharpened by monsters' memory. On final eve before predicted surge, Leighton stood upon beacon tier. Melora beside him, palms bandaged. Yet both felt vigor seldom known. A hush blanketed city. Expectant but calm, as though populace sensed tether moored. Stars wheeled, midnight struck. The heart's core flared bright, but no wild scream. Prism drank light. Lattice pulsed purple-blue, dispersing current through veins to side towers along Mander. To Arbor Beacon recently kindled. To River Beacon humming far north. Instead of narrow beams, a corona blossomed. Delicate aurora ripples dancing across sky from west to east. Citizen eyes widened, but awe replaced fear. In arc-lit glow, couples embraced, children laughed. Septons knelt in wonder. Inside Prism, not a crack formed. Deniston exhaled, tears streaking soot. Leighton smiled at Melora. Shadow and light, braided, he whispered. She squeezed his arm. Yet far offshore, watchers on a lone black ship saw Aurora ripple and cursed. In the gloom, a priestess with eyes like dying coals spoke. Door sealed anew. We must carve new key. She raised crimson blade and turned toward distant east again. Morning dawned clear. Snow gone, replaced by crisp blue horizon. Oldtown awoke to new era. Crowds formed at Tower Plaza, chanting simple phrase, "Light and shadow, one no." Leighton addressed them from balcony, voice carrying without magic, only conviction. "We sought to guide dawn but learned humility. All flame needs wick, all towers need foundations. Together we have bound hope with caution, and so we stand, stronger." Cheers rocked air. Bell peals joined. In council later, Rowan Envoy delivered parchment from Highgarden praising harmony, pledging further men for Beacon Network. Baylor reported River Beacon stable. Ellery arranged for songs teaching balance. Denniston approached Melora privately. "The lattice will hold generations, yet feed on equilibrium of blood glass. Ensure line remains dutiful." She nodded gravely. Martin patrolled docks, pausing to watch fishermen paint twin-colored lanterns, half blue, half dusk purple. That night, Leighton visited observatory alone. The heart hovered serene, surrounded by halo of mingled hues. He placed hand near, felt no pain, only pulse steady. He whispered, "Thank you, my children." But as he turned, a ripple of cold passed through chamber. In the glass he caught reflection of a door-shaped void framed by faint stars, then gone. He frowned. Light dims, shadow creeps, but door stands sealed, yet door remains. He breathed deep. "There is always another dawn," he said, "and always another dusk." He extinguished his lantern and descended into Tower's belly where stone still remembered ancient tides, determined to keep vigil so long as breath remained. Months later, at Midsummer's height, emissaries from King's Landing arrived under white flag. Queen Regent Myrcella herself disembarked, seeking sight of famed, balanced Beacon. Leighton greeted her with measured courtesy, leading delegation to Beacon Tier at twilight. They beheld Aurora swirl. "Yet sublime," Myrcella murmured. "No menace here, only beauty." She turned to Leighton. "Will you lend such light to Capital's harbor?" Leighton smiled. "Perhaps, but light alone is insufficient. You must embrace its shadow also." She studied him, then nodded slowly. "Teach us." So Oldtown became not rival but master, guiding realm in dance of dawn and dusk. Beacon Network spread. Dragonstone at last bowed, spurred by song of ice and fire scholars. Distant lees offered pearl glass for prisms. Each new tower braided blood of volunteers with shard of shadow glass. Ceremonies overseen by dawn shadow priests. A new order founded by Melora, blending Maester rigor with Ashai wisdom. Sir Martin led Horizon wardens far and wide, dousing rogue flames that sought to unbalance weave. His first light tempered now purple-edged. Ellery composed the Canticle of Twilight, sung from Arbor Vineyards to North Watchposts, celebrating unity of contrary forces. And though deep sea still hid sleepers, their chains now linked to heart's steady drum. Each beat reminder that mortals, when wise, may clasp fire without burning if they accept night's cool hand upon the wrist. Far in Ashai, Silvertongue breathed incense and watched distant skies swirl lavender. She smiled, whispering to unseen shades. "The first lesson learned. Next door awaits." Shadows shifted, listening. But for a time, year, decade, maybe generation, the realm lived beneath balanced dawn. The Hightower standing taller than legends, its beacon neither blinding nor silent, but singing quiet song that told sailors where shoals lay and dreamers where hope might rise. A song wrought from blood, freely given and shadow, humbly embraced, proving prophecy